Hi everyone, today I want us to discuss about climate change, which is one of the major events that is affecting the globe and is bringing to the attention of all the world leaders, and they are coming up with policies that will help in combating climate change. There are also acts which have been passed by our governments to help in combating climate change. We shall look at the definition of climate change, the causes of climate change, and the impacts of climate change that climate change has had on our globe. What is the meaning of climate change? Climate change refers to the significant and lasting changes in the Earth's climate patterns over an extended period of time. As you know, that climate itself means that the changes in weather patterns over place over a long period of time, usually 30 to 35 years. So when we say that climate change has taken place, it means that these weather events that used to take place in the past have changed and the trends are not the same, and we can't predict even what trends will be there in the future. These alterations that lead to climate change may result from change in temperature, change in precipitation patterns, change in sea levels, and all others, change in humidity and everything. Also, we shall look at what causes climate change. Climate change can be induced by either natural factors or human-induced factors. Okay, let's look at the causes of climate change, which we've said before that it's either human-induced or natural factors. So we'll start with green gas emissions. Green gas emissions are a result of some of the factors that result from either human activities or natural factors. For example, burning of fossil fuels. The combustion of fossil fuels such as coal and natural gas for energy is a major source of greenhouse gas emission. So when these gases are emitted, for example, we have carbon dioxide, we have methane, and nitrous oxide, which are examples of greenhouse gases. When they are released into the atmosphere, they lead to the heating up of the atmosphere, because this heat is trapped in the atmosphere, contributing to the warming of the globe. Another factor is deforestation. Deforestation is the cutting down of trees without replacing them. As you all know that plants are important sequesters of carbon dioxide, for they use CO2 in the process of photosynthesis. So when we cut down the trees, it means that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will increase, because there are no trees to make use of the carbon dioxide. This leads to, as you all know, that carbon dioxide is an example of a greenhouse gas. So this contributes to the warming of the globe. Deforestation and land conversion. We all know that due to population increase and improvement in technology, land has been converted into other uses. For example, trees have been cut down to create space for urbanization, construction on infrastructural facilities, and all that. So this means that the land that was covered by trees is reduced, so the amount of carbon dioxide that was absorbed in the atmosphere is no longer being absorbed, so it remains in higher amounts, this leading to amount of CO2 being high. So this leads to warming of the globe, leading to climate change. Another cause of climate change is industrial processes. Industrialization is one of the major improvements in technology that has been improving as days moves by, and as you all know that we all depend on products that are made from industries, but these industries still have negative effects to our environment. For example, some of the large industries such as cement production industries release large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and we've said before, carbon dioxide is one of the major greenhouse gases, so this has an effect on climate. Another factor is agriculture. Some of the agricultural activities such as livestock farming, rearing of ruminant animals, they release large amounts of methane during their process of digestion, and methane is also another example of a greenhouse gas. Rice paddies, or planting of rice in large plantations, and rice is usually planted in fields that are covered with water, and this leads to production of methane. Also, climate change can be caused by natural factors, which is the second factor. So some of the natural factors include solar radiation, variation in the Earth's orbit, and changes in solar radiation can influence climate over periods of time. Then we have volcanic activities, eruptions. As we know that during volcanicity, gases are released into the atmosphere such as sulfur dioxide, which can have a negative impact and which can be long lasting. Let's look at the impact of climate change. One of the impacts is rise in temperatures, which has been contributed by factors such as heat waves, increased frequency and intensity of heat waves has led to health-related illnesses and strain on infrastructure. Heat waves have effect on living organisms. For example, when the rays of the sun are intense, the infrared, when they come direct on our human skin and they come into contact, they can lead to skin cancers, they can lead to high cataracts and other health related illnesses. It can also have effect on plants, leading to reduced productivity in plants, and also can lead to withering and all that. Another factor is change in growing seasons. So when the temperatures are high, this means that the crops will not survive without water. As you all know that majority of the parts of the world depend on rain-fed agriculture, and when these temperatures are high and there is no rainfall, this means that the crops are going to dry up and they will not produce. Change in precipitation patterns, which has been contributed to increase in extreme weather events. Nowadays, when the weather events occur, for example, during the summer, the temperatures are very extreme, very high, and during the winter, they are also very low. And in the case of rainfalls, when the precipitation occurs, the rainfall, they are very extreme. They can lead to flooding, storms, hurricanes, and this can have impacts on living organisms and can also have negative impacts on the environment. Another one is shift in rainfall patterns. Farmers used to depend on the farming calendar or the agricultural calendar to know the planting seasons, when to plant and when to harvest. But nowadays, this is not predictable because the weather events have changed, and nowadays farmers sometimes grow and they end up harvesting nothing, or sometimes the produce is very high, the rainfall are very good, but you can't predict when the produce you're going to plant and harvest. It's not predictable nowadays. Another one is sea level rise. The rise in sea level, which has been contributed mainly by the melting of glaciers and ice caps from the polar regions, which is mainly due to the rise in temperatures, which has led to the melting of these glaciers. This water flows back into the ocean, leading to the rise in sea level, and this can cause flooding in the coastal region, leading to displacement of animals and also loss of biodiversity. Melting of glaciers contribute to rising sea levels and impact ecosystems and wildlife in polar regions. I've discussed about that. Then we have ocean acidification, which has been contributed to the bleaching of the coral reefs. Increased acidity in the oceans affects marine life, particularly the coral reefs. Coral bleaching occurs when stressed coral expel the symbiotic algae living in their tissues, leading to the widespread of coral mortality, which is the death of corals. Another one is biodiversity loss, which has been contributed by, for example, habitat disruption. For example, when the polar regions, the melting of glaciers melt, so the animals, for example the polar bears that live and depend on these habitats, their habitat is lost, so they have nowhere to live, so some of them end up dying. And also the death of the coral reefs, that means the animal that's, for example, fish, which mainly depend on these corals for example reproduction. This means that, and also there are some of the animals that live in these corals. This means they are disrupted. Altered migration patterns, change in temperature and food availability can affect the timing and routes of animal migration. Agricultural impacts, which will be seen some of them, such as crop failures due to high temperatures and change in precipitation patterns. Another one is pests and diseases. Shifts in climate can influence the distribution of pests and diseases affecting crops and livestock. Water scarcity, change in water availability, altered precipitation patterns, and increased evaporation leads to scarcity of water in some of the regions, affecting agriculture, industries, and human consumption.